Adolf Eichmann as avowed architects of the Nazi regime. However, these politicians and generals merely ordered the murders of millions of people. They did not directly oversee the killings or carry them out. That was the responsibility of the butcher of Auschwitz-Birkenau. The Third Reich admired efficiency and dedication, and Rudolf Höss, a young SS officer from Baden-Baden, Germany, demonstrated an unmatched skill in achieving results no matter what the cost. Appointed as the longest-serving commandant of the infamous death camp Auschwitz-Birkenau, Höss personally designed the Zyklon B killing process, responsible for exterminating an estimated 3 million Jews, Poles, Russians, and Gypsies. By examining Höss's upbringing, early enlistment in the military, and SS training, we will see the evolution from a stern rule follower with a desire to join the priesthood into an individual capable of sublimating his consciousness and humanity in order to execute the killings of his Führers. By doing so, it will become clear that while he did not create the final solution to the Jewish question, his moral suppression and inability to question orders enabled him to become the greatest mass murderer of all time. In hopes of understanding Höss's personality and background, the psychologists of the 1946 Nuremberg trials afterwards asked him to write memoirs about his life, ranging from his time as a small boy to a high-ranking officer in the Nazi SS. The author narrates in vivid detail the workings of the death camp Auschwitz-Birkenau, but these sections do not explain why he permitted mass murder. In order to understand this, we need to dive deeper into his childhood. The two factors that ruled his childhood were Catholicism and isolation. His father took a vow to place his son into the priesthood, and from an early age, his father prepared him to join the seminary. While most kids reject their parents' prescribed career paths, Höss did not. He accepted it with open arms. This was also driven by his desire to be a loner. He said nature and God were his friends, and he didn't need anyone else. He said he was resolved, I believed as deeply as a child could in the church, and I resolved to become a missionary no matter what. Priesthood was Rudolf's duty, and his father's most enduring lesson was that your duty was to come before anything else. However, this dedication to the church only would last a few short years. After giving a confession that he accidentally hurt a small boy, his local pastor broke his vows of secrecy and told his father. This deeply upset Höss, and he said he never could trust the church anymore. He often lashed out, and his father tried to curb his stubbornness, but he simply couldn't. And sadly, his father died a year later. Höss said, "I cannot remember if this loss affected me in any special way, but his future actions would prove otherwise." Following the death of his father, he longed for another duty, and World War I opened the door that he couldn't refuse. He desperately wanted to join the military, but his mother wouldn't allow. Höss bribed a captain to falsify his documents, and he was sent to the front lines in Iraq at 16. And he had his newfound father, who was the captain of his unit. In his first battle, Höss said he was deeply scared and troubled by all the shells going off, but all he had to do was look to his new idol. He said the captain was a shining example of what he wanted to become, and he worshipped him a great deal. In his baptism of combat, he calmly killed several Indians, and at the amazement of his unit, Höss would, adeptus at taking and accomplishing orders, were just quickly noticed right off the bat. He was courageous in the heat of battle and never backed down from a fight. His reputation allowed him to promote to the youngest sergeant in the German army. He had commanding troops almost double his age. So how do we transfer from this to the pictures on the screen? Well, after the war and a short time in prison, he met Heinrich Himmler, who is the commander of the SS. They had the glorious responsibility of protecting the Führer, and in 1934, Himmler asked him to join the newly formed concentration guard troop. He quickly rose to the rank and then became a commandant. And once again, Höss had found an ideology and a father figure, repeating the previous patterns of his life. As a member of the Nazi Party and the SS, Höss believed that it was his sole duty to protect the fatherland and obey every order. To him, the orders from Himmler were not just something to be questioned. You had to execute them. The unquestionable infallibility of Himmler was a part of his training in the SS and a part of the SS propaganda. SS officers were inflated to status equal to protector of the realm, and they believed that without their unflinching action to even the most grotesque orders, the country would fall apart. Höss had traded in Catholicism for National Socialism. Himmler was the cardinal and Hitler was the pope, and now Höss was the priest he promised never to become. He was convinced that every order was a commandment to be followed, not questioned. It was necessary to destroy all Jews in order to free Germany and future generations from their toughest enemy. In his final memoirs, he acknowledges his actions were morally wrong. He considered the extermination of an entire race necessary in an order he could not disobey. Höss abandoned traditional morality for ideological morality of the Nazi Party, and by doing so, permitted the murder of millions in his own mind. While it is easy to paint the butcher of Auschwitz-Birkenau as evil and bloodthirsty, it was not Höss's desire for death that allowed mass murder to occur. Rather, it was his unfaltering desire to please his ideology and father figure. All throughout Höss's life, he searched for these two missing aspects of his personality. Whether it was priesthood, the army, or the National Socialist Party, once Höss accepted his ideology as a calling, he became blind to its potential shortcomings and its faults. In his final letters to his family, Höss finally realized that his legacy will not be remembered as duty, or even as a perceived courageousness to stand up for the SS, but rather as murder. He tells his sons in his final letter, "Learn to think and judge for yourself responsibly. Do not accept everything without criticism, and it's absolutely true. The biggest mistake of my life was that I believed everything faithfully which came from the top. Learn from life." In this final plea, I think the death dealer teaches us a lesson we all